Hello, everybody, and welcome to Working Class Hollywood. Real quick before we start the show, I just want to remind you guys, if you have it in your heart, please go on to iTunes or wherever you're listening to the podcast and subscribe, leave a review, give me a rating. It is really helpful to the show, getting it out there. I also love hearing from you guys. I love hearing comments about what people think of the episodes, if they found them inspiring or informational, educational, whatever. So please go out there and let me know what you think. All right, let's get to the show. Welcome to Working Class Hollywood, conversations with people that make the movies, TV shows, and entertainment you love. If you're looking to break into or move up in the entertainment industry, or you're just a fan of content and want to hear about how it's made, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Jeremiah Smith. My guest today is my wife, Carrie Smith. I had Carrie on the podcast last season, and I got a ton of feedback from people saying that they were just really inspired by her story. She had just quit her job, and she was kind of stepping out, as Elsa from Frozen would say, into the unknown. And so I wanted to do a follow-up so people could hear where she is now, and what she's doing. So let's get to my follow-up interview with my wife, Carrie Smith. All right, I am here again with my wife, Carrie Smith. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Jeremiah.
It's so rare that you actually say my full name.
I never say your full name.
Every time you do, like, my ears perk up, and I'm like, uh-oh, am I in trouble? But I wanted to have Carrie back on the podcast because of all the episodes I did last season of Working Class Hollywood. It's like 28 or 29 episodes. I think that your episode got the most feedback. And
really?
Yeah, the most comments, people talking to me about it at work, the most like emails, Instagram DMs, and because I think a lot of people related to your struggle and they admired your courage to like quit your job. And just as a quick reminder, when we recorded last time with Carrie, she had just put in notice, right? Mm-hmm. Of a corporate job that you've been working for like 7 years.
I was doing food marketing for about 5 years.
Yeah, but it was like the company, you've been there for like since before Oliver was born. So
correct.
It was like 7 years.
I was a pastry chef for the company, and then I transitioned into the food marketing role.
Right. So you were, if you haven't heard Carrie's story, you should go back and listen to it from season 1. But it was, you just put in notice, you had been working from home, you were miserable, mm-hmm. and you were ready to leave.
Yeah, I spurted on you within a few weeks of my decision because it had been leading up because I had been depressed and I was anxious, and the job it kept evolving over and over again to no challenges, no real skill set of mine, especially what I've built up with for so many years, and it kept reorganizing and having new bosses, and the straw that finally broke the back was another reorg, and I wasn't even asked if I wanted to be in this new position where I'd at least been asked previously, and I was just a name in a box.
Yeah. So you had just put in your notice, and we talked about it.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what was going to happen, where you were going to go, where you were going to work, how we were going to make all our finances work, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to do like a follow-up so people could hear where you are now and how you're doing. So just why don't you
So we're homeless now.
Yeah, we're recording this from under a freeway bridge. No, it wasn't that bad.
We had to tighten the belt strings a little bit.
Just a little bit for a few months there. But it was worth it, I would say. So catch the people up. So what happened? So you
Okay.
put your notice in and you quit, and where'd you go?
So I put my notice in and I ended up staying for about another month just because I'm kind and I wanted to be helpful because I really enjoyed the people that I worked with and I didn't want to leave anybody in the lurch. I just didn't like the corporate side of it. So I stayed for about another month and they were very understanding of that while I was trying to figure out what I want to do. And I didn't really know. And I knew that I wasn't using my skill set. I wasn't using my pastry chef school, skills. And for those of you that don't know, I went to the CIA back in the early 90s and I went for baking and pastry. And it's really the only thing I've ever really loved. And
not the spy CIA, the spy organization. It's a culinary school in upstate New York.
Yes.
What does it stand for? Culinary
Institute of America.
CIA.
Yes. So pastry's always been in my world and it had always been hands-on in my world. And going from very hands-on, from owning my own business and working in hotels and catering company and working in television and then being a corporate pastry chef to then doing food marketing where I was doing primarily spreadsheets and some digital photography and, a lot of new product development, which was challenging in its own. But after so many years, it just kind of, it wasn't challenging anymore and it wasn't fun and it wasn't as exciting. And felt like I was very separate from my original career. And I didn't feel like I was current with any of the pastry trends. I wasn't really staying up with the people that I was working with for so long. And I wasn't as passionate about what I was doing. So I started thinking about like, what was the thing that I enjoyed the most out of all my jobs? And I had the benefit of working with food for all my jobs in some area of another, but I always enjoyed showing new techniques to people. I always enjoyed showing new products and how to use them and how to, teach people on certain skills and crafts. And
you love showing people how to do things with food. One of my early memories of you is when we were working together on Halloween Wars before we started dating, when we were just like friendly, maybe a little flirty. You were always in your little culinary area, like doing little demos for whoever would like stop by, and like you showed me how to pull sugar and like wrap it around like a Sharpie or something like that.
It was like the best day of your life, wasn't it?
Or something. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's very apparent and obvious like how much you enjoy showing people how to work with food and pastry and sugar and stuff. And you have a lot of passion for it. And
seeing like my students and even yourself, like when you get to see like a sugar rose being created just with hands and some isomalt, you get kind of amazed, and to see people, for me to see that amazement is really rewarding for me. And I got to find a little bit of teaching in every aspect of my jobs. And so one of the things you and I had talked about when I wanted to get out of that, work from home position was to maybe get back into teaching, but I wasn't really sure if I could. I'd done a little research and I didn't know many places that were hiring.
Well, there's not that many places in
not
general
anymore.
That teach that, that have like full on culinary programs. So it'd be like, oh, what about, the Art Institute? I'm like, yeah, they're not hiring, or they're
gone.
They canceled their program, or like, what about that place downtown? And be like, yeah, I don't, they're no one, they don't need anybody. So there's like only a handful of options even for what you wanted or thought you wanted to do.
Yes, and I wasn't really sure, and because I had taught for Le Cordon Bleu for 6 years, and Le Cordon Bleus across the country had closed in 2017. Art Institutes had all closed. There's very few accredited schools left within the United States. CIA being one of them, where I went to, and some smaller schools that are attached to certain colleges. But I wasn't sure, what path I really wanted to get into. Did I want to go back into teaching full time? Did I want to go back into television? Did I want to do more of education, but not teaching? I really wasn't sure. And
I kept trying to encourage you to open your own business again and maybe buy a little bakery that was already existed, and you kept shooting me down.
Because you have no idea how hard that is. It was really hard when I was 27, and I'm not 27 anymore.
Every time we talk about it, it's like you have PTSD from running that bakery in Julian.
Yes, I would consider doing it again if we didn't have two little small children, to focus on, but I have to give myself 100% to that, where I can't do that now. I have to give myself to you and the children and our home. So I can't devote that time that I was able to do. Because I lived above the bakery and I lived it. It was get up at 2 a.m. and work until 10 o'clock at night every day, and there's no way I can do that again.
Yeah.
No.
We talked about, I was encouraging you maybe like, oh, do you want to like get your teaching credentials? So you could teach at a high school, and
I looked into that because I would, the idea of working in a high school. We live in Burbank, so imagine working at like Burbank High or Burroughs as a high school home economics teacher. It's different than maybe what we had when we were in school. And so now they do a lot of like catering, and they actually do a lot of culinary, whereas I think I made like pizza bagels when I was in home ec and did some crocheting. Now it's like an actual culinary program that they have in the high schools, but I don't have my teaching credential for like I can teach post-secondary, but I can't teach in K through 12 without having a teaching background, like a teaching credentials, which I don't have. So I kind of researched that. I met with some of the culinary instructors at the local high schools, and I was lucky enough to kind of get their input and help me, understand what the program was. And it wasn't really going to be the right fit. Maybe someday it could be, but I'd have to go back to school to get that. And at the time, I really just wanted to get back in hands-on. I felt like I'd missed it for so long. I really wanted to get back in there and make stuff with my hands and show people.
That if you hear weird alien noises in the background, that's our Chihuahua Stella, who's begging to be pet right now.
So I think once I finally left the company, and I think it was like the next day, my friend Kim, who you have had on the show, she's a culinary producer.
Kim Seeley, producer.
She was the one who originally got me into working into culinary producing back in 2008, 2009. She was looking for help on Nailed It season 3.
Nailed it.
3, 2, 1, you're done. And it just happened that like the very next day that I wasn't working anymore for my previous company, she needed help in the culinary department. And I'm like, well, the kids are going to be going into summer camp, so I've got this little window of time. And she said she'd make it work, and I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's go back into culinary producing and see how that world is, and see what I would get out of it. So I was able to go back and work with her and the kind of like the secret chef team, and work on sculptures and work with her amazing culinary department. And it was really enjoyable. Like I missed that when, similar to like when you and I had first started, meeting and working on shows. I got to pull sugar again to show a few people, because that was one of the elements that we used in the show, and it was really fun. But the whole time I was there, I knew it was going to be temporary, because I had to go pick up the kids every day, and I couldn't devote the 12 hours that most everybody does when they're working in television, especially for food. But it was a nice break from the depression and how I, kind of neglected, I think I was feeling working from home for so long. So it was fun working with Kim and her team, and, seeing people that I used to work with, and the director that we used to work with on Cupcake Wars. And it was just like coming home again. So it was really enjoyable. But I knew that was probably not going to be a long-term thing. But it was really nice for me to have that break. So from there, I started trying to reach out into more culinary schools that may be in the area. Would there be a possibility for me to move into a different type of education? And I took my time. I wasn't in a rush to kind of get back into anything. We knew we were going to take probably the whole summer for me to decide what it is I would get me that spark again. But I ended up taking this job with this one culinary school. And the day I walked in the door, it was like, boom, wrong decision. Everybody within the company said, you're too good for this place. We couldn't tell you when you interviewed. You need to run away. And I'm like, I just left.
And you'd been off of work at this point for like
a month or two. That's it.
A couple months, right? Like
yeah.
You were home. You were like,
I had done Nailed It. I was just helping out here and there. I was spending time with the kids. We were like, it was so fun. Well, for me, it was fun. I was like taking them everywhere. They of course were like, let's just stay home and play video games. But I was really enjoying like taking them to many places I could before I knew I was going to go back into working like full-time hours again. But
so you're like, new job, first day,
like,
here we go.
Got a new wardrobe. I was all excited. I walked in, and literally the first day, everybody would come up to me and said, we're really excited you're here, but you're too good for this place. You need to run away. I'm like, what? Like, wait. This is, I was sold a bill of goods. Like, I'm so confused. I interviewed so many times with this one person, and then I basically just found out that they were selling me a bill of goods. And I found out very quickly, and I'd stayed at a job for a long time. I really enjoyed the people, but I did that for the benefit of our family and for the needs of our family. But I was not about to stay in a bad job after just having that epiphany. So after a few weeks, I went into my boss and I'm like, nope, this isn't going to work. You and we don't have a good working relationship. We will never have a good working relationship, and I'm not going to settle. And he didn't even acknowledge that I gave notice. And it was so weird.
I forgot about that. And there were a lot of things wrong. Like it was
just wrong
the system,
all around. Yeah.
the management, it was very unorganized. They weren't like treating people well.
No. And I have since heard that since I left, they're probably most likely going to close. So the writing was on the wall. I'm glad that I didn't stay any longer than I had to. I met some really amazing people just in the short time I was there, but the management was just so poor that, everybody knew.
Yeah.
I wasn't the only person that left. I think that they thought I was coming in and as to be some sort of savior, but I was not going to put up with I don't put up with toxic environment at all. So, so from there, and it was really funny.
What I remember too is like, you were like so depressed. You took this big risk. You quit your job, took some time off, and then you went back, and within like a matter of days, you were coming home and you were like, this fucking place is fucking such a mess. And I was like,
Crazy.
It was like, wow, like, really? Is this like, you went to all this like great effort and courage to do these, like, take this big risk, and now you're just like back in like a shitty job again?
Yeah, I'm like, hell no.
That sucks. But what's cool, I think, is you'd like sort of like unlock that piece of your mind.
Yes.
And like where you knew that you were worth more than your job. You knew that you had the potential to find something better because you'd just gone through that. Instead of allowing yourself to get stuck at a new company that you didn't like, you were like, nope, fuck that, and quit.
What's funny too is right where this school was just happened to be across the street from a very prestigious culinary school that at the time when I gave notice, they weren't hiring. I knew a lot of the people that worked at this amazing school literally across the street. But they weren't available. They weren't looking for people. And I think even just taking this kind of job that didn't work out, toxic relationship, I found myself really enjoying still teaching. I was covering classes. I was working in administration. And I knew that teaching was definitely going to be the path I needed to go back into. I just needed to find the right school. And I was able to be in constant communication with the folks across the street. I was very honest with them about how I'd accepted this job. I didn't know where it was going to go from here. You weren't hiring, unfortunately. Waited it out a little bit, and then I think the skies aligned, the stars aligned, everything worked out well. And when I gave notice at the other job, knowing I wasn't going to stay in a toxic environment, I walked across the street, and I was able to be hired at the Institute of Culinary Education.
ICE, they call it.
Good ICE. They call themselves the Good ICE.
I keep telling you they need to find a new acronym or nickname because ICE has a lot of bad connotation and horrible things associated with it. But ICE is where you are now. You're teaching again.
I'm teaching full time. Yeah, and it's so much fun. And it's definitely different. Even than when I taught at Le Cordon Bleu before. There's a lot of the same folks that I used to teach with that were then hired to teach at Institute of Culinary Education. Le Cordon Bleu at the time, at least for Los Angeles, we had about 4 campuses when I taught there. And I left in 2009. And the building that Institute of Culinary Education took over one section on Green Street. And the short-term culinary school that I was working at was across the street, was also part of Le Cordon Bleu at one time, one of their locations. And so it's super close. It's literally just like across the street. But I was able to go across the street. The president, Lachlan Sands, he and I would have open conversations, and I was very honest about what I had left in my previous job, about how I wasn't going to settle, and what I wanted to do. The dean of education, Hervé Guillard, I worked with him. I've known him for 20 years. He's the lead pastry chef. One of my closest best friends, Melissa Chapman, she teaches in the Health Supportive Culinary Arts. She's the lead instructor there. And then she also teaches in bacon pastry. It was like coming home. And from the day one that I walked in the building, even though it's been rearranged a little bit, it looks obviously very different. The labs look different. But I felt like I came home. And I was embraced with open arms. They brought me in like the day after I was available to start working, got my jackets ordered, and immediately started shadowing in a class for about a week. And then boom, started my own class. And I'm teaching in baking and pastry for one schedule, which is 4 hours a day. And then my second schedule is in the Health Supportive Culinary Arts class. So I teach both programs.
And Health Supportive Culinary Arts, HSCA.
That's the acronym, yes.
You want to just explain quickly what that is?
Sure.
I think it's pretty cool.
It's pretty amazing. So there was a school in New York City that started around the same time as Institute of Culinary Education. It was 1975, 1976. And the school in New York was called the Natural Gourmet Institute. And Anne Marie Colbin, she had started this in her her apartment in New York City. And it grew and grew and grew to where she had this amazing program. Some of it was plant-based. It was about how food heals your body. They would talk about macrobiotics, Ayurvedic cooking, really get, down into what food does for our bodies and how it feeds us, and following certain principles. For example, like whole food, local, seasonal, in tradition with harmony, non-GMO, organic. The principles are amazing. And, our lifestyle is very similar to some of those principles. We're not 100% plant-based within our house, but we eat as best as we can. We let the kids obviously pick whatever they want, but I had already been starting this lifestyle, had brought you on this board, on this journey. And so knowing of that program and knowing about Anne-Marie's teachings, I was very grateful that I was been brought in to teach into that program. So I shadowed for a few mods within that program before I got my own class. Whereas with baking and pastry, that's already in my wheelhouse. I've been doing it for over 20 years. So I was able to kind of jump right into that patisserie program.
And how do you feel now that you're back teaching? You have this new job.
Yeah.
How do you feel compared to when you were in your work from home spreadsheets and conference call job?
In my previous work from home position, I would always be looking at the clock, like how many more hours do I have? How many more spreadsheets do I have to edit? I have to make sure that I call my boss, because they were in Georgia before the end of the day, because we were 3 hours behind here. It was always the waiting game. Like, is it done? Is it done? Is it done? What's the, oh, okay, I'll take one more meeting, or oh, okay, I'll get up a little earlier for the next meeting. Now teaching, it's time flies because we have so much fun. There's stress involved, of course. My students are worried about certain things. Some of the stuff they've never done before. I have to make sure that they succeed. Hopefully, I want to set them up for success as best I can. And coming back into ICE, I co-taught with one of my good friends. Her name is Norma. And we had such an amazing class. We had 17 students. It was in the patisserie program. And it was like nothing. It's like how we used to teach together from years past, like over 10 years ago. And we had such a great class. They were so fun. They were so engaging. I cried at the end of that first class. It was like a 12-day class. And I told them all, I'm like, you guys are amazing. And I cried. And I said, just, you tried, you were honest. Some things didn't work so well. Just when you go out there, you just be kind. Just know this is a different environment, and, you're learning here, but you're going to have to go work in the industry. And I was lucky enough to have them again before they went off on externship for the last module, which was chocolate and sugar work, which is of course one of my biggest passions. So I was so happy to finish that with them and then send them off on externship. And I cried again when they left on externship after we savored champagne, but it's so fulfilling. And I know it's hard on the family, my schedule, because I'm not at home. And, we have holidays that we have to think about now. Whereas when I was working from home, the kids could just run around, or we had sickness in our house and both of our kids got sick, and I stayed home a couple days, you stayed home a couple days, and when I was working from home, we didn't have to deal with that. So it's definitely harder on us. And, I'm not as readily available for you and the boys as I was before. We'd watch movies all night long and hang out because I didn't care. I wasn't, rushing to go to bed to get ready for my first 5 a.m. call of the day. But now I'm studying every night. I'm reviewing curriculum. I'm reviewing nutritional information so that I'm 100% when I go to prepare for my students. And I want to be prepared. I want to go those extra steps, and I want to make sure that I feel good, because I'm teaching these students, and these students they're putting a ton of money into this education because they want to have an accredited diploma when they leave to then go off into the industry. And I want them to get all their money's worth.
I don't think you've complained once about your job since you started at ICE. How long?
I started it on September 11th.
September 11th. So
2019.
it's been like 3 or 4 months.
That's it.
Now? Mm-hmm. I honestly don't think you've come home and complained. Well, you've had some stories where you're like, oh, this was this happened and this was annoying, or this student did XYZ or whatever. But it was nothing never anything negative, never anything like, oh God, I'm questioning what I'm doing or where I am or anything. Mm-mm. And it's like, it's been a huge drastic change in you and just your demeanor, and you seem like you have your spark back.
Yeah, no, it's been really fun. And even when I come home and tell stories, I learned so much from my students, and I would come home and tell you So my student did something, and it was totally not the method that we had gone over, but it came out so much better, and it was a new way to make it, showed so many other people. Or, we talk about an ingredient like a sea vegetable like kombu, where we will utilize it in the recipe, but yet my student who's worked with kombu way more than I have, she's like, no, you can also do this, and you can do this, and you can do this, and things I didn't know. And you're like, I love learning every day, and it's so much fun. And then the students see that, and it's a really different way of teaching than how we used to work when it was Le Cordon Bleu, where we'd have probably an hour-long demo, and then the students leave, and then they mimic what you do. Like, we don't do that anymore. Now it's short bursts of demos. We keep things current. We want to make sure that they're retaining all the information, and we keep it as not just fun, because they're in a learning environment, and my students know I give tough love, and sometimes I have to hold it to a different standard because I want them to retain the information, but they know that it's because I want to prepare them. But it's just they absorb it better. It's not always just, monkey see, monkey do. They get to put their own unique spins on things. I learn from them as well. We have an enjoyable day, and it goes so fast. I mean, it's only a 4-hour day, and I teach 10 classes a week. So I have, right now my schedule is baking and pastry in my morning class, and then I have HSCA in my afternoon.
Yeah, and you're working so hard, but you seem so happy because you leave at 6 o'clock in the morning or 6:15 or whatever time you leave. You don't get back to Burbank until around 6.
About 6, yeah.
And then it's like you're like making dinner for the kids and for me, and then we're getting the boys to bed, and then you just like bust out your little spiral bound textbook
over there.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. She was studying before we started this podcast. And you like have been studying for like 3 or 4 hours a night to like, prepare for what you're teaching the next day.
Yeah.
But again, you're not like, oh God, I have to study this thing. I mean, you're just like doing it and telling me things like about sea vegetables, and
they're so good for us. They're so good.
The only one I know is like seaweed.
And, well, yeah, nori. You just know nori from sushi and things.
Yeah. But yeah, it seems like it's been really great for you. Yes, selfishly, it's been. I don't see you as much. Yeah. And like, I miss you in the mornings because getting the 2 boys up every morning and getting them to school is a feat. But, and I'm doing that alone again versus, which it had been several years because you had been working from home for so long.
Yeah.
But it's fine. We make it work. I think I complained the most probably about that than anything.
You just need to get up a little earlier, and you'll be okay.
You tell me that every time, but I also like to sleep. I don't like to go to bed, but I like to get sleep, so I want to like stay up late and then sleep until like the last possible moment.
Yeah,
I know it's bad, but and then at night you're studying, so I'm like, hey, wanna watch a movie with me and wanna play a board game with me, like wanna do something, and you're like, I have to study, but I can tease you, I can complain, but I mean, obviously it's worth it. And it's, I think it's been a great move and a great decision.
I think especially for me personally, it's got those creative juices flowing again to where, I'm teaching, it's long hours, of course, but it's spurring those, that creativity where I'm going to go down to San Diego for the cake show that's coming up at the end of March. And I'm really excited about that. Whereas before it'd be, I could go to that, but I have this to do and I have this to do and it's just going to be too much. But I want to make the effort to, spend the whole weekend down there and, network with different people. I've taken like family herbal medicine classes on the weekends, like a workshop here, and, you never stop learning. It's been so much more fun. It's been showing and opening my mind. I think that, I was settling before, and I know I was doing what it was for the family. I'm obviously selfless, to a fault, but I've been so happy that I've been able to take this time to really find what I get the most joy out of. And you've been an amazing, role in this as well, because we had to tighten the budget for a while. I obviously left a very good paying job, and I don't get that same paycheck now. So we make less money. I work more hours. Benefits are not the same, as we've found out with sickness in our house and going to urgent care.
Yeah, we all got sick, and we're like, oh, at least we have health care. And then it's like,
and then we get there, we're like,
$50 copay. What?
It's like, my copays were a lot lower before, but again, it's the quality of life. And when I'm at work, I see my students when they come in and I see how excited they get. Like we just did plate of desserts for the first time on Friday and they worked in teams to do it and they made such a kick-ass job. I was so proud of them. And then my HSCA class, I'm only on lesson 20 with them, whereas my baking students, they only have, I think, 2 more classes and then they go on externship. So the program is either 100 days or 108 days. So I've got some almost at the end and I've got some that just started, and to see the different passions and the sparks, from like newer students versus ones that are exiting soon, it's just all around. I enjoy it so much and I get to work with amazing chefs. I have such a great core team. My boss now is Missy Chapman because she's the lead of HSCA. So she's my boss for HSCA. And then I still teach in baking and pastry where Hervé Guillard, who's the dean, and he's so good with all the students and he's the lead in pastry. So I kind of have dual roles that I report to, and everybody is it's a team environment. So if like you need help with something, or if you're not sure about this recipe, or where's this ingredient, or, what's this piece of equipment that I have to use, like everybody's they will jump on board to help. And, ICE does so much also just for the community. They just did a whole, they allowed it's called CCAP, and they did a test for their students. And that's a high school organization that CCAP does, across the country. And I think they had 90 students that were doing a test in my lab that I use usually every day. And I got moved around on Friday. And it's so nice that because we can allow them to use our space and our we can use our kitchens and they could do their test for their students. And some of these students may get a scholarship even just to come back to ICE. And, we do orientations sometimes. We do orientations during the week, but then we do open houses on the weekends, and we have skills classes we give to our students, and we just want to prepare them for, just going back out in the industry. But it's not where we're trying to flood the market, where I think Le Cordon Bleu failed because we had so many campuses and it was just like, pass them, just get them going. Whereas here it's, we take pride in our students and we want to help them succeed.
Your passion is just dripping dripping off the microphone. What do you think that you learned about yourself or life, or just like, what do you think you took away from this experience of being miserable in a job, quitting, taking time to kind of like gather yourself, and then like finding a new job? What do you feel like you learned?
So I think for me, staying in the position that I had before where I was working from home, I felt like it was the only option because we had to be readily available for the kids. Sometimes you had to travel so much for your job. Your hours could be take a trip on the last minute. And I just kept thinking in my head, well, I'm just going to have to keep doing this. I'm just going to have to keep doing this because someone has to be available for the kids. We don't really have a lot of close family nearby that can just jump in and, watch the kids if someone gets sick, or if like a holiday comes up, and who knows what we're going to do for summer. Like
Lincoln's birthday tomorrow.
Celebrating it tomorrow.
Why is Burbank School District closed on Lincoln's birthday? Nobody else has it off, Burbank.
But it was, I got scared, and I just basically was like, nope, this is what I need to do for our family. And, I had a very lovely paycheck, and we had good insurance. So I think I just got stuck in a rut, and I put myself on the back burner. But what I realized is that, it didn't make me happy doing that. And eventually it bubbles up to where, I was so depressed and I came to you in tears. And, it made me realize that even when you think it's going to be the hardest, your family comes together, they rally, and you make it work. And I've been able to realize that, we've got a holiday tomorrow, and yet one of my closest friends' son is going to come and watch our kids, and we'll figure out what we do for camp. And that's just what everybody else does. I don't have to sacrifice my happiness just for the sake of the family. I mean, of course I would do anything for you and the boys, but, having me be healthier and have a better mindset is just good for everybody. Yeah. And I can see it you see it. The boys can see me being happier. They ask me every day when I make at school. I would bring them things like we made lollipops one day in school, and they were so excited that I brought home lollipops. Where every day now they're like, "When are you making lollipops again?" They don't really care when I bring home the sea vegetables, but they like when I bring home the lollipops. But they see how much happier I am, and they see me going off to a job and being at home for so many years. I don't think they even realized I worked. I think they just thought I was hiding in a hole. I called it my hole, but I think they were just like, you don't work, you don't have a job, you're just there in your office, and I want them to be proud of me.
Wearing pajama pants and
Sometimes.
And dirty hoodies.
Sometimes I did, because I wasn't really, who was I wanting to impress, at 5 a.m. when I had these conference calls. But, I want the boys to see that, you should enjoy what you're doing. I don't want them to see that you have to be unhappy at a job, because that's all they saw. And so now they see that I'm proud of what I'm doing, and I show them what I'm doing, and they've been cooking more lately since I went back to work.
Carter loves cooking.
I know.
Even this morning, I was like, I'm going to make breakfast and eggs. And he's like, I'm going to help you. And he pulls up a step stool.
Yeah.
That's pretty
cute.
cool. And what would you say, what advice would you give to someone who is maybe in a similar situation where they were like, they had a job that they weren't happy in, but they were worried about losing that security to pursue something they were more passionate about, be it, film, TV, writing, cooking, like whatever, just like they're not happy and they want to leave, but they're scared to. What would you say, having just done that?
So I think the first thing is communication. So I think that they need to talk to whoever's in their network. If they are single with kids, they talk to their kids. If they have a spouse, they talk to their spouse and their kids. They talk to their family. They make a game plan. It doesn't always have to happen maybe as quickly as it happened with you and I, because I came to you.
Did we make a game plan?
Well, I think my game plan was, I'm miserable and I'm crying every day, and you don't see it because I'm in the office and I talk to Roomba, and we're like, we just need to figure it out. You need to stop, because I was going crazy. And we were lucky enough that we made it work, but you have to communicate, because, you have to express, not repress. And I repressed it for a long time, and I just sucked it up, which was a motto of mine for a long time. But, you have to be able to make yourself happy, or you'll never make anybody else happy, whether it's a relationship, your family, a home life, but you can bite the bullet, and it can be really scary, and it might suck, and you might be eating like rice and beans for a period of time. And, you do that, and then you pick yourself up and you figure out where it is that you will go and make yourself happier. And, if you're like myself, where I was like, well, what do I do for the summers, or what do I do for this, or what if someone gets sick? Well, we just had to deal with the sickness. And you know what? I had to call my bosses and be like, my kid's sick, I can't come in. And people rally, they will help you. And you just have to understand that you don't have to take it all on yourself.
Yeah. Well, I hope that people can hear this and be inspired and apply whatever you did and, to their own lives, because I do, it was hard. It was rocky there for a minute. We weren't sure how it was all going to work out, but it worked out. And now it's hard in a different way, but you're much happier. And, I think we're all better for it. So
yes.
Good job, Carrie.
Thank you.
You did it.
And thank you to you, because you were my rock during the whole thing, because it's hard. My big change, it was, I was, for the first time, being selfish. Like, I have to do something for me. I have to make myself happy. And it definitely rocked our family. And it still is. Like, we don't know what it's going to be like when you go back into shooting, and we don't know what's going to look like when it's time for the kids to be out for an entire summer, and how we're going to like cart them around and do what we got to do. But you know what? It'll work out. I know it will. It'll be hard, and it might be fly by the seat of our pants for a little bit, but we'll make it work.
We always make it work.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me. I'm gonna go back to studying.
Yeah, you can put the mic down and go back to your studying. Love you, honey.
I love you too.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks. All right. That was my wife, my inspiration, my love, Carrie Smith. She's amazing. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you are enjoying the podcast. Just a reminder, please, if you haven't already, to go onto iTunes or Spotify or wherever you're listening and subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating. It really, really is helpful, and I love hearing from you guys. I have some great guests coming up that I'm going to be interviewing in the next few weeks, so look forward to that, and I will see you guys next time.